Welcome into another edition of Snyder Basketball Take 3. I'm Dan Vance, filling in for Tim Atkinson again. As always, Coach Jeremy Roush. Also joining us, junior captain Dillon Duff. We'll talk to Dillon in a little bit. Coach Roush, we're going to jump right in. Yep. SAC opener last Friday night. Big victory over the Wayne Generals.
Really excited with how we played. Love the atmosphere. You know, great crowd, great student section in terms of turnout. A lot of energy right off the start from our guys. I think you can always tell early on with the bench energy and with our defense and our defensive communication, kind of if we're ready to go and if we're ready to bring it, and really pleased with how we started.
Let's go right into that first quarter. Big difference immediately is a new lineup, a new person in your lineup, right, and adding Clevis Craig. What do you expect from Clevis, and what did you see in that first game, an immediate impact for him inside?
We're still kind of, working on that. We're still kind of trying to see what the best thing that he is that offers and how long he can sustain his energy and his conditioning and staying out of foul trouble. But there's no question that he's the focal piece of our interior play on both sides of the ball. Him being able to provide a certain amount of fortitude inside offensively allows spacing for everybody else to play on the perimeter. Now at the same time, he's a pretty skilled forward himself with range to about 12, 14 feet, and he showed that in the first quarter. And then defensively, our hope for him is that he becomes the rim protector that I think that he wants to be as well. That'll allow our defense to be even more aggressive as, we can kind of funnel him inside to somebody who can disrupt and block shots.
How do you feel the team kind of did in setting your own pace and you kind of setting the tone of how that game's going to go and the flow of that game?
I think our intent was really good. We want to maximize possessions. We want to play as fast as we can. We want our guys to cross half-court line in 3 seconds. Early scores are a big part of our offense. But there's still too many times, I think, especially in that game, especially early on, where we got in a little bit of a hurry. We got carried away with maybe some passes that went out of bounds, or we thought something was there and maybe it wasn't there, and it would take a few more reversals. So it's negotiating that, trying to score quickly, but if we don't, recognizing that and then executing something in the half court.
We got in the second quarter, the flow was pretty good. The crowd really started to get into it in the second quarter. Really great crowd out on Friday night for the SAC home opener. What is that atmosphere like for a lot of guys who are not used to playing in that atmosphere?
I mean, that was fun. That second quarter I really felt like was driven by our defense. Mm-hmm. And the fact that when our guys are communicating and we're locking down on defense and we're hounding the basketball, and then our bench gets into it and they get excited by the energy and the intensity that our guys play with. Now the crowd's into it and the students are into it. Now everybody's involved. That's when it's fun. That's the way that we want to play, and I thought the second quarter was really good for that.
What was kind of your halftime message to this group? Wayne made some runs in the second quarter. Most of their stuff kind of happened in the third quarter, but they were still doing some really good things. So what was your message to your group at halftime?
We made a point of emphasis on defense about the way that we guarded sideline ball screens and maybe what they were going to do to counteract that, and so we wanted to clean that part up. Otherwise, defensively, we had some kind of in-game goals, and so with that, we set some halftime defensive goals, and we had met each of those halftime goals. So then it becomes, let's make those our second half goals as well. Let's, instead of them matching or us matching their intensity, because they're going to try to fight back, let's still come out and hit them again and make them reach a level of intensity that they weren't expecting for a team that was up by whatever it was at 13 points at halftime. And so that it was still kind of defense focused, and then at the same time it was, we could be up even more if we didn't throw the ball away as much.
Going into that third quarter, they start making some of their runs. You and I have talked all season. Mm-hmm. Inside presence is huge for you guys. Clevis gets in some foul trouble. Darius Alexander gets comfortable down there low. Yep. What were some adjustments you made in that third quarter as they started making some runs, getting the ball inside, and shooting the ball very well?
Yeah, I mean, that was tough, and the game slowed down. And, he gets to the free throw line, or other guys get to the free throw line, and they made a concerted effort to get him the ball. And so it's a good adjustment on their part and for being able to keep pounding the ball inside. We tried a couple different lineups, and finally, we just committed to full fronting the post and not letting the ball inside and really amping up our pressure on defense. And then I think that kind of held there into the fourth quarter.
You get into the fourth quarter, Wayne gets it back within 9 points, but then Dillon and Michael Ely come down, and you have 3 straight possessions with 3-pointers. Then Dillon gets a good steal on a lay-in, and all of a sudden, 2 minutes after it was 9 points, it's 19 points. How big was it for Dillon and Michael to step up as your leaders in that moment?
I mean, that was huge. And the fact that, everything is kind of going into Wayne's way, and it's a 9-point game with whatever it was, 6 minutes to go, but it felt like it was such a tight game because of the comeback that they made. but these guys were still able to play fearless and play our game and hit open shots and make extra passes, because each of the shots that they got were for sure within the structure of our offense and were open, uncontested looks that we would want them to shoot. And they were ready, and they knocked them down.
Talk about making those extra passes. There were a couple of times, and you and I have talked about it before. Carson Jenkins passes up an open three-pointer.
Yeah.
Aaron Thomas passes up an open three-pointer to make that extra pass and expand that offensive game. How important is it that you have guys who have less experience that can make those educated decisions?
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's Snyder basketball. You know, to pass up a good shot for a great shot, or to understand when to shoot and when to pass, and to play within the framework of the team. And I read something the other day that said making the extra pass is such a make or break element of a team that it affects the locker room, it affects the way that you play, it affects the chemistry as a whole. Is that simple skill and the ability to read it and to be able to execute it. And so when we do that, we're at our best, and then you know, our ceiling is tremendously high.
You now get 2 games under your belt. How do you feel about the depth of this bench? Went 11 guys deep again against Wayne, so you've gone 11 deep each of the first 2 games. How do you feel that depth is working in your favor right now?
We like where we're at with that in terms of giving everybody a look, and we'll continue to try to give maybe even more people, up to 12 potentially, a look, and just kind of get our sample size up as guys are kind of jockeying for position. And it does help if fatigue is a factor in the other team. There's no way that a team around here has a bench as deep as us, but it only matters if we can play at a pace that maximizes possessions and that allows fatigue to be a factor.
Awesome. So the win last week over Wayne to start out SAC season. This week we will head to the Northside game. The freshmen and the JV teams have already played, so let's check in with Coach Dager and Coach Marino and see how the lower levels did.
With the freshman group, we did lose in overtime, and I thought that we battled very well. And one thing that we did well was our defense, trapping the ball full court and half court, getting into our defense. Our press was pretty good. When we cut the court in half, we're pretty tough. When they really want to focus in and do what we draw up, they do a really nice job. We just have to lock in and be able to do it more. I would definitely want to shout out Zay Groves, who came off the bench and gave us good defense and 8 points. And then Tyler Harding gave us 10 points. When we kind of struggled to score at times, we could look for him to get some buckets, and we need that moving forward.
For JV, it was one of those games where every bounce, every shot, every break went against us, and I never really felt like the guys on the court gave up. I felt like they kept playing hard, and it just wasn't there. It wasn't their night in any facet. One of the things we really need to work on is how we handle that adversity. We may not face it a whole lot, but we need to know how to face it, and whether that means not bickering with each other in the locker room, not bickering with each other on the bench, just encouraging each other next play to forget about it and keep going. That's something we really need to work on. And I want to give a shout out to Preston Barker, who was going against a guy twice his size all night and rebounded and blocked. And even though he was getting beat up a little bit, really stayed positive on the bench, stayed positive in the locker room, and really tried to pick his teammates up.
All right, Coach, you're going to head into Northside on Friday, have a chance to avenge a couple of tough games, but well-played games earlier this week. Before we get into that, tell me a little bit about who you brought with you.
So this is Dillon Duff, first team All-SAC last year, our best player, our hardest worker. Leadership has influenced, one of our most influential leaders of our program, and a captain. And one thing I wanted to highlight out of Dillon is his continued quest for improvement throughout the time that I've known him, whether it's on the court or in the weight room, or he works out with Bryce Miles, does a great job and has a great relationship with him. He's been tagged an absolute beast in all of his work. And I've said before, when our best player is our hardest worker, then we as a team can achieve our full potential. And for that, I wanted to highlight Dillon.
Awesome. Dillon, let's talk a little bit about you as a player and what you bring to this team, because like I talked to Coach Roush about, not many guys have seen the atmosphere of last Friday night. You've seen it all. You were a freshman on the SAC champions 2 years ago. You were here last year as an important part of the team. So where do you see your role being in that leadership area?
For me, the biggest thing is just making sure everyone else understands that we just want to come out and win. So it's not about me. It's about just doing whatever you can to make the team as good as you can. And I think for me, playing in the past, I see what I want the team to be, and I know we can be. So it's just me striving to be the best that our team can be.
For you, an individually really good game against Wayne. For your team, how important is it to win the first game of the SAC season? Because it's going to be a long season, a lot of good teams.
Oh, yeah. I mean, first game, a good win, get some nice momentum, and just everyone getting used to playing in that atmosphere for some of them for the first time. And just, I mean, once they get used to it, then it's really when we can start rolling. And
what do you look at as the ceiling, if there is one, for this Snyder team? Obviously, starting off 2-0, a lot of expectations for you in a young group.
Yeah, well, for us, I think we got a lot of things we need to work on. I mean, we're playing well, but there's still a lot of things that we need to polish, you know, like, I mean, just to make us the best we can be, just keep working every day, never be content.
Coach, we're going to head into this weekend, Northside on Friday. Historically, a good rivalry game.
Right.
2 years ago, the big overtime win for you guys. Last year, they had a big game. That shifts here Friday. What are some important things for you to do to start out 2-0 in SAC play?
So I think that we want to continue to establish the way that we want to play. We want to play fast. We want to make the extra pass, but we don't want to have 22 turnovers in the game. So we want to play with a certain amount of structure and discipline where we kind of know what we want to do and then we execute within that. Northside would be the opposite. Their goal would be to make it look less like organized basketball as possible. And the less it looks like structured, disciplined basketball, the more it favors a team that's undermanned. So we want to make sure that we do what we need to do and control what we can control, and that really starts on the defensive end.
You have for the first time a Friday-Saturday doubleheader. You'll take on Northside Friday, host Maryville here on Saturday. An exciting weekend for Snyder basketball. Fans can come out Friday night, second game of boy-girl doubleheader, and then Maryville, it's 5:30 tip.
Yeah, 4 o'clock JV, 5:30 varsity.
4 o'clock JV, 5 o'clock varsity tip on Saturday against Maryville. For Coach Jeremy Roush and Dillon Duff, I'm Dan Vance. This has been another episode of Snyder Basketball, Take 3.